Good morning. Good morning. Children, before you go with Mrs. Summer, this is our last Sunday morning here in this church. You know, I grew up in this area. I lived in Palm Bay for 30-some years. In the past couple years, I lived in Melbourne. And this church building, if you've got the joy of growing up and raising children in the area, it's called a memorial or an altar. One day you'll be able to drive your kids to the spot and tell them about the goodness of God. This church building represents the power and the love of a Father, of a God who looked after a small church and all their ups and downs. And you'll get to come here one day with your children and sit in the parking lot and say, "Let me tell you about my God." There were weeks that this church, we didn't know how to pay the bills, but we prayed. And there were weeks where we didn't know, who would show up, but we prayed. But there was this one week, and you can point to the roof, say God did something incredible. He blew off just enough shingles to tell us we have to do something. And then He took care of selling our building and moving us to our next place. And what will soon be history will also be pages of your active faith and God at work that will continue to build this story. A story of a loving God, of a King who looked after your church family. This building stands as a memorial. And that's all. It doesn't represent anything else other than God. God is real. And I'll be able to come back with my children one day as they get older and explain to them that my God showed Himself to me, to the elders, to the worship team, to some ladies who prayer walked every week in a real and definite way. We weren't known for ministries. We weren't known for being big. We were just known for our faith and that God proved Himself. So as you go with Mrs. Summers out the side door, I'm sure she will continue to tell you about the goodness of God. The rest of you, we're going to head to James 2. We're going to look at the last verse. It's really kind of ironic, I would say coincidental, that we end on this verse. But we know there's no coincidences in the kingdom. For as the body, James says, apart from the spirit is dead. All right, just really quick, a side note. So James is using the body as an illustration to faith. And he says, if your body doesn't have a spirit, it's dead. You all right, Gene? Yeah. All right. I thought the two of you were going to throw down. So make sure you keep it under control. One more week. All right. So you need a spirit to have a useful body. I mean, you can have a body without a spirit, but what good is it to you? Not much. Not much good. Without a spirit, your body is dead. I mean, the body is still there. It's just dead. I mean, I think James is pointing at something that's pretty obvious. You need spirit. I find it interesting too. He uses the word spirit, which could also be used for the word breath, which could also refer back to Genesis chapter 2 and the breath of God breathed into you. I just find it interesting. He doesn't say a heart or a heartbeat. He says the spirit is dead. So also faith apart from works is dead. Faith apart from works is dead. I don't want dead faith. Do you? I mean, I want my faith to be alive. So I'm all ears, James. But the problem is, you all right, Alexa?
We're going to go outside and
That is awesome. Church is done. She's awesome. I told Alexa anytime she wants to come in during my preaching, that's fine. But I'm going to point her out. Also, faith apart from works is, I don't want dead faith. And I bet you don't want dead faith either. You want your faith to be alive. You want your faith to be operative. You want it to be useful. How do you bring dead faith to life? How do you bring it to life? I mean, you have faith, James indicates, but your faith is dead. It's not beating. It's inactive. It doesn't work. So what do? How do you bring it to life? I mean, there's a critical answer. I know I've lost her until she's out. Alexa stole it. And that's okay. It's okay. It really is, you know. James, the way he writes, he repeats ideas. This is not a new idea. Like the end of chapter 1, religion. True religion is visiting orphans and widows in their affliction. That's true religion. So you could say, well, fake religion is saying you would visit them, but you never do. Right? So he's also repeating this idea with faith. Right? I mean, what good is it to say you have faith, but have no works, have no mercy? Is that faith of any value? So I want to back up to James chapter 1, and I want to see this thought of dead faith. All right, a person that has faith that is dead seems like a very odd person. Seems like a person that is at war with himself. Verse 5, James says this, back at the beginning of his letter, he says, if you lack wisdom, ask God, who will give generously to you without reproach. I've just changed the pronouns there, just to personalize it. It will be given to you. So hold on. James, you are told if you ask God for wisdom, He will give it to you. He will give it to you. There's a promise in that. It's not He may give it to you, He will give it to you. But the question is, do you believe it? Do you believe He will give it to you? No. See, this word belief plays with your mind. Because we use it for this like cognitive mindset. Yes, I know He will give it to me. Yes, I know He will give it to me. My mind tells me He will give it to me. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, do you trust God so much that when He says, I will give you wisdom, you know, without a shadow of a doubt, without hesitation, if you ask, you get it. Because this is what James is saying. He will give it to you. But if you come in wishful thinking, hoping to get it, but not really believing you're going to get it, not really trusting you're going to get it, He's got words for you. He says in verse 6, ask in faith, ask in trust, ask knowing you will receive this. Do not doubt yourself. Do not doubt this. For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea. It's like the wave that you're driven by the wind. You're just tossed all over the place. Then he says this. This is key right here, guys. Don't suppose you'll receive anything from the Lord. You shouldn't suppose you will receive anything from the Lord. That word suppose is the same word for imagine. Do not imagine that you will receive anything from the Lord. Okay, we are talking about dead faith. We are talking about faith that doesn't move mountains but could move mountains. The faith that you want as a child of God. The faith to know beyond all doubt that your heavenly home is just waiting for you. That God has taken care of everything you need. And this faith drives you. It drives you to have mercy on those you encounter in life and those you see in their affliction. This is what we're talking about. And we're finding the answer of how to bring this faith to life. James says, if you doubt, don't imagine. I want to use the word imagine, because I think it brings it to life a little bit more, that you will receive anything from the Lord. Why does he say that? Shouldn't you exercise your cognitive belief? Shouldn't you work in your mind of believing that he will give you things? But James says, shut the whole imagination station down. It's broken. It's not working for you. Shut it down. Your imagination, your supposing, has led you to false beliefs. And now you're living by them because you're doubting. What you're imagining in your mind is flawed. You're not thinking correctly, and therefore you're not coming to the faith that you ought to be at. I hear him say it. What I hear James saying is just stop imagining altogether that God's going to give you anything. Something in your thinking is broken. The imagination is a powerful thing. It really is. I mean, you can imagine yourself afraid of spiders and never be afraid of spiders. And if you imagine it long enough, it becomes your reality. You could become afraid of spiders. Your imagination could turn into your reality, but your reality, if it's derived from your imagination, could be false. So you may believe in your mind, God will give me all things, but you can begin to imagine, I don't know, and this becomes your reality. And your belief becomes seated in a false reality, and you become double-minded. Because what you imagined to be real is not real. But the problem is, you have experiences that line up with your imagination. I need wisdom, God, to get through this trial. I'm going through a hard financial time. Give me wisdom. I believe you will give me wisdom to get through this. And the trial gets worse. And there was that seed of doubt that you didn't even know existed. And your imagination starts to ask the question, well, maybe he won't give me the wisdom. And you see, that begins to parallel, this imagination begins to parallel a false reality that God is not taking care of you. Because you're not seeing him come through in your finances. And so what James is saying, shut down the imagination. You have to start over. You're going way off into a field that God is not in. And you're going back and living under the power of your old nature. Which Paul says in Romans 6 there is a constant conflict between your spirit man and your natural man. And James is pointing right at it. And he's saying, shut down that natural man. Shut down the thinking. You are double-minded. You are unstable in all your ways. Shut down the imagination. I want to put this to you in a couple ways. I've had a few MRIs done. You know what an MRI machine is? They shove you into this casket thing that has one escape, except they tape you down to the bed and you can't escape. I'm never afraid of MRI machines. Never had a fear of MRI machines. Until this last go-around, and I got on the phone with a brother who is deathly afraid of them. And he started telling me all the things that could go wrong. And I had no fear of MRI machines, but as he talked, I started to wonder. But I thought, no, I'm still not afraid of them. It'd be fine. Well, I walk into my doctor's appointment and standing in front of the MRI machine, and would you guess what's on the MRI machine? Scuffs and marks of all kinds. It looked like a grizzly bear came in and tore the thing apart. And I said to the doctor, I said, what happened? He goes, well, the MRI machine's a big magnet. It sucks in anything of metal. And one of our transport people was pushing an oxygen cart down, and door was open, got sucked in. I said, are you for real? And what happened? Well, everything my brother told me the day before that was seated in my imagination became my reality. Well, okay, but I'm not going to be chickening out. So I get on the board, they tape me down, they put me in, and I'm like, this is fine. 2 minutes in, the first, that noise that just you're being ported back into time happens, and my heartbeat picked up. Greg, are you okay in there? I guess they could see my vitals and something was going on. I'm fine. And shortly after that, my mind started to play in the scenes of the fire and they're saving themselves while leaving me strapped to the MRI machine. And guys, I almost had a panic attack. They said, press the red button and we'll get you out. And I'll tell you what, man, I knew if I pressed that red button, I had to do it all over again. It was the worst experience of my life. My imagination became my reality, but it was a irrational fear. One more example, because I want to prove this to you in how fears come to life. Fears that you never knew you had. Where do they come from? Where does your fear of close spaces come from? Your fear of heights come from? It comes from your natural man. Where does your fear of dying by a lightning strike come from? I mean, it's not fear rooted in the spirit man, it's rooted in your natural man. But a lot of you don't know you have these fears. They're like little seeds just planted in the soil, ready to just flourish. Apparently I have a fear of bridges also. I have a reoccurring dream, and this is a dream. No one even tells me this. I have a reoccurring dream. I've had it maybe a dozen times of driving off the causeway. And this is how it happens every time in my dream. I'm driving up the bridge, and it's the 520 bridge, the one where the engineers, they hired one engineer to build it this way, and then for some reason he got fired, and the other engineer built his bridge that way. The 520 Causeway Bridge, just go check it out. It's freaky. I'm always on this bridge in my dreams, and I'm behind a trailer. And it's as vivid as day. And it scares me because the trailer loses a tire, and it bounces towards my truck, and what do? Skirt! Over the edge. And right before I hit water, I wake up. Sweaty and wondering if I crashed in. I die in my dreams, except I wake up right before that happens. It's happened a dozen times. I had this dream, a variation of it, 2 nights ago. And I'm dreaming I'm on the bridge, and for whatever reason, I'm careening over the edge, and I said, here we go again. I think this is going to really happen one day, God, and I wake up, and I'm just like, I find myself, I'm just agitated. It was just a dream, but the same dream again. And I'm lashing out at Becca, and I'm lashing out at my kids, and I said, where's this coming from? Well, it came from a dream that stirred a irrational fear in me because my imagination became my reality. And I'm living by something that's not real. It is a fake or a false belief, but it became my belief. And you go through this every day. You encounter things that validate lies and false beliefs that you don't even know are buried in you because of all the stuff you've heard in life. And you just watch yourself. Why do you become anxious? Why do you become stressed? Why do you become fearful? Where is it coming from? What have you experienced in life that has validated that belief or that thought process that it's now governing you? James says, shut it down. Shut it down. What it's doing to you, there is the same answer is found in your faith. Dead faith needs to see real things. Dead faith needs to see God at work. Rahab is brought up as a woman of faith in Hebrews 11. And go back to Joshua 2 and let's see, where does her faith come to life? What happened in her life that she sees God at work and she lives by faith? Before the men laid down, these are 2 spies from Israel that come into Jericho. They are coming to spy out the land, to wipe out the city. The prostitute encounters these 2. Before the men laid down, she said to the men, I know that the Lord has given you the land. I know we're done. I know it's over. I know it's not happening. Jericho will not be in existence real soon. The prostitute says it. The fear of you has fallen upon the city. all the inhabitants of the land melt away before you. We have heard and we have believed that the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea. Do you believe that? Or is it just some story that happened 3,000 years ago? It sounds cool. It seems like it fits our God. She believed it. She wasn't there at the Red Sea, but she heard about it and she believed it. We also heard about what you did to the two kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon and Og, whom you devoted to destruction. As soon as we heard it, our hearts melted, and there was no spirit left in any man because of you. The city believed. The city believed. Their imagination was rooted in what God was really doing. Dead faith needs experience. It needs God experiences. She goes on and says, "For the Lord your God, He is God in the heaven above and on the earth beneath." She didn't just say this because she came to a Sunday school class and came to know it's true. She said it because she became a witness to it. And she lived the rest of her life believing it. So much so, she put her life on the line by hiding those spies. What brings faith to life? Experience. Experience. And not something big like he blew shingles off the roof. Those are huge anchors in your story. Every day you are filled with God experiences that validate your faith. So if you have a child who's growing up, and the child at a young age believes you love them, you will take care of them. And as the child gets older, if you've got older kids or you've gone through this, you know this to be true. I know it to be true because I was the child. And the child begins to push back on mom and dad. Maybe call mom and dad some names that should never come from a child's mouth. Or maybe the child begins to say, "Mom, you hate me. Dad, you don't care about me." And the child begins to rebel because the child doesn't believe he or she is cared for. 99% of the time, the child is incorrect. Mom and dad took care of that child up to the point of where he or she is at that day. What gets a child to begin to believe that mom and dad does not care about him or her? A false belief. And experiences that seem to validate the false belief. A child wants candy before dinner. Mom says no. Well, you don't care about me. Because if I want candy, you should give it to me. Well, mom knows what's best, but the child doesn't yet. If the child, the son, the daughter, "I want to date this man," I strongly advise you not to. I see something in him that you'll never see. Well, Dad, you don't care about me. I love him. And they run off together. But if you've got the joy of watching your child grow, they will come to a point, if raised in the Lord, they will likely come to a point of realizing their folly. I've seen it in my own life. Mom and dad didn't know best. And I've got experience after experience after experience to prove it. You know what it does? It drives me back to mom and dad to rekindle relationships that I broke. But during that maturing phase, my imagination takes off. And what I begin to believe about mom and dad appears to be validated by lies and deceit, things I see in this world, the things I think I need. God is at work in every single one of you, every day, to bring you into His peace, to work all things out for your good. If your faith is dead, Which James is saying, you say you trust the Lord. You say you trust God. And then you turn around and meet this person who needs help. You see they need help and you say, I can't help you. You prove your faith is dead. Because God has prepared you for these good works. You say, I believe God is in full control. He will take care of all my needs. And then you encounter this need that you see, not the guy holding the sign necessarily, but you see a need and you shut down to them. What are you saying? I really don't believe he's in control. Why would you shut down to the need? One, you're fearful of your own life, or two, you're greedy. There's no righteous reason to say no in a time of mercy, especially when it exists in your family and in your church family. But a live faith says, I trust in God. You turn around and you see you see someone struggling, and your gut reaction is just to help them and not to be concerned and worried about what you're going through, because you already know. You know that you know that you know. I'm taken care of. I can do whatever my heart leads me to do, and that is to love. That is to love. You see, what you don't need to bring your faith to life is to be told over and over again, God loves you. You probably already know this. You need to begin to see it. You need to begin to see that it's true. The repeating words, God loves you, absolutely helps as you are reminded day in and day out of the goodness and faithfulness of God upon your life. You need experience. The psalmist says in Psalm 37, I believe this is David, I have been young, and now I am old. Yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, or his children begging for bread. He is ever lending generously, and his children become a blessing. If you fear for your life, you fear for your well-being, you don't believe this. And you're probably the one messing up your own situation. You're probably making decisions based upon irrational fears and an imagination that's gone wild, based upon lies, and you're not able to see straight. You're not able to lead yourself down the roads of righteousness that are heading home. But when you say, God, here I am. This is my problem. It's your problem. Walk me home. I go back to doing what I'm doing. I put a Facebook photo up this week. It was about a guy holding a Walmart inner tube, looking at a mountain had a big waterfall coming through it. And my caption was, sometimes the mountain is cast into the sea, and sometimes you're cast into the mountain. And as I looked at that picture, I just saw a guy who saw a trial. He says, well, better make the best of it. Go get his Walmart inner tube, and let's enjoy it. James says, I don't have this in the slides, man. What is it, verse 2, verse 3? Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness, and steadfastness, let it have its full and perfect completion, so that you'll lack nothing. James says God is bringing you experiences, and unfortunately, they're not the easy ones. But he's bringing you experiences so you can see and taste his goodness. They're in front of you every day. 27, Psalm 27, I believe that I shall look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. It seems to be a reference to the kingdom of God. Man, I hope this becomes your breath. Your the nature within you, your instincts, that you know. You will see God in the land of the living, because you will live there too. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. And that's the hardest thing to do when you meet your trial. But living in active faith waits upon the Lord to do what He needs to do in your life as you're out living your life and showing mercy to the afflicted. So I said I find it not ironic. It's not a coincidence we end here. But we end here. And for 8 weeks, we peel back and we will do potlucks. Sarah will lead us in some worship. And by the way, if you want to lead a devotional, I'll be happy to have you take one of the nights, 15-minute devotional. If something's on your heart, I'll give you the ability to lead us. And just talk to me. I would love to actually work with you throughout the week if you want to bring a message to the church. Do it through potluck and whatnot, and just a time of fellowship. But what are we closing out, guys? What are we closing out? I mean, don't get me wrong, the elders for the past 8 weeks, we've talked about what are our plans. Our plans include stuff for teen ministry. Our plans include exciting stuff for children ministry. Our plans include a lot of things. But at the core of it, what's our plan? It's not to change who we are. It's not to jeopardize what God has done. Because here's what God has done. And it started 7 years ago when I stood in front of a professor and I said, I don't know what to do at seminary. I don't know what to do. I said, you tell me what to do, and your voice is God's voice. And without hesitating, he said, you need to go plant a church and be a pastor. And I said, that's not on my to-do list in life, but I trust. And then came those moments of wanting to be led astray by organizations that would tell me that, Greg, you will make a great pastor for a mega church and you're going to grow a quick church. And I said, well, that's fine and dandy, and go put the plans in motion. The Lord shuts it down. It's not my plan for you, son. You're going to do things a little different than what you grew up knowing. All right, fine. And we start in a park, and you know the story. Let me remind you about the experiences, about how God has proven Himself to you, so that this becomes a memorial, a remembrance of the goodness of God upon your life. We start with $237, and that's it. And the Lord paid the rent. And the next week He paid the rent. And the next week He paid the rent, and before long, He brought us here. And He said, I can hear it now, for 5 years, you will learn what faith is. He put it upon my heart, upon Wally's heart at the time Mark was with us, and upon Matt's heart. You will not burden your family for finances. I will take care of it all. But you have to trust me. I will never give you a penny more than you need, or a penny less than what you need. And those weeks came, and they were so hard. I can still remember sitting in that cry room, being so frustrated with these elders, saying, how do we pay the mortgage? It's due Monday. We don't have the money. Well, your elders said it's not their problem. We put the budget together. It's our problem. So we prayed. And every time, I'll tell you, this happened over and over and over again, and you never knew about it because it wasn't your problem. But we told you about it after God brought the solution so you can know the goodness of God. But plenty of sleepless nights. Plenty of imaginations running wild. Will God do this? Will God do this? And every time He said, son, you're taken care of. Don't worry about your church. Over and over. Up to, let me remind you once again about the roof. Because God is real. And He proves it daily. For us, every Sunday. For you, it's daily. And He took off just enough shingles to keep our roof from leaking and brought in a contractor literally the next day to tarp it in. And He said, now it's time to step out. Your season here is done. Make your plans for the future. But one thing's for sure. It is I and I alone who leads. And He will challenge us. Now that there's money in the bank, what do? We pray. We do what He's taught us to do. We believe. We have faith. Everything this church needs is right here in this room. Everything we need for our new space, God has already brought or will bring to us. All of our desires for the things that we've been planning for 8 weeks, stuff for children ministry, stuff for teen ministry, all of these things, we know the Lord is taking care of them. And you get to witness this. Why? Because He wants your faith to come alive. And He's proving it to you through this building, through your leaders, and through each other. Because there's going to come a day that you're going to need some mercy. And we as a church family need to step in. But we need to know, when we pour out upon you and love you, that we're okay. Because God is watching over us. What lies behind us, wouldn't have it any other way. Would not change a thing. Would not change a single face in this room. I'll tell you, if you could see yourself through the way God sees you and through the way I see you, you'd see just how incredible you are. How unique you are. And how God has designed you for such a time as this. I mean this with all my heart. We love you. Because God first loved us.